Vince Balbo, and I'm the Director of Security and School Safety for the School City of East Chicago. Prior to coming to East Chicago, I was a policeman for many years with the Lake County Sheriff's Department, and then after that, for about another 27 years, I was a federal agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration. I've had a great opportunity to have many adventures. I've traveled the world. I've traveled to Asia, Afghanistan, Russia, all the places in the world. But I find wherever I go, I always enjoy reading books because it takes me to other places I've never been before. And it'll take you to places just by reading these books. The book I had today is called Bud Not Buddy, and the author is Christopher Paul Curtis. And this book takes you on quite an adventure, and I really enjoyed reading it to you. I'm going to read a little bit of it to you today. Start out and said, I folded the blanket and sheet and set them back on the mattress. Then I reached up under the bed to get my suitcase. Most of the kids in the house keep their things in a paper or cloth sack, but not me. I have mine in my own suitcase. I sat on the mattress and untied the twine that held it together. I did what I do every night before I go to sleep. I checked to make sure everything was there. The way things are with the kids going into the home every day, I want to make sure no one had run off with any of my things. First, I pulled my blanket out and saw that everything there was where it was supposed to be. At the bottom of my suitcase were the flyers. I took the blue flyer out and looked at it again. The paper was starting to wear out for me looking at it so much. I liked checking to see if it was there and if there's anything on it I hadn't noticed before. It was like something was telling me there was a message for me on this flyer, but I didn't have the decoder ring to read what it was. Across the top of the flyer, written big black letters were the words limited engagement. Then in little letters it said, direct from the SRO, Engagement New York City. Underneath in big letters again it said, Herman E. Calloway and the Dusky Devastators of the Depression. Those 6 exclamation points behind that word made it clear to me that this was something of really important news to me. Anyone could think of. Seems like they'd have to really have a greatly deserve all those exclamation points all stacked in a row like that. Next paper said, Masters of the New Jazz. Then in the middle of the flyer was a blurry picture of a man I have a real good suspicion about. I've never met him, but I have a pretty good feeling this guy must be my father. In the picture, he's standing next to a giant fiddle that's taller than him. It looks like it's real heavy because he's leaning up against it trying to hold it up. He looks like he's been doing this for a long time, and he must be tired because he's been droopy, dreamy look on his face. There are 2 men besides him, one playing drums and the other one blowing a horn. It wasn't hard to see why the guy must be my father. He was just like looking at the picture. You could tell he was a quiet gentleman, real friendly, smart man. He had one of those kind faces. Underneath the picture, someone had written with a black fountain pen, one night only, in Flint, Michigan, at a luxurious 50 grand, on Saturday, June 16th, 1932, 9 and tell. So it seems like it's talking about when they were performing. I remember Mama bringing the flyer with her when she came to work one day. I remember because she got upset when she put it on the upper table. She kept looking at it, picking it up and putting it back and moving it around. I was only 6 then, and I couldn't understand what this was all about and why she was so upset. She kept 4 others that were just like that in her dressing table. But this one really got jumpy. The difference was I could see between the blue one and the other ones that the other ones didn't say anything about Flint on them. I remember this blue one too because it was too long after she brought it home, and I knocked on Mama's bedroom door and I found her. I put the blue flyer back in the suitcase with one of the 4 older ones and put everything back in place. I went to the big chest of drawers and took out my other clothes out and put them on the suitcase too. I tied the twine back around my bag and went and sat on Jerry's bed with it. Jerry must not have been thinking just as hard because neither one of us said nothing. We just sat there close enough so our shoulders were touching. Here we go again. There comes a time when you're losing a fight that it doesn't seem like there's any sense to fighting. It's not that you're a quitter, it's just that you've got no sense to the whole thing happening at all. I was just having this thought because Ted Amos was hitting me so hard and fast that I knew that the blood squirting out of my nose was only the beginning of the whole thing of bad things that were going to happen from now on. Ted's next punch crashed into the side of my ear, and I fell on the floor and pulled at my knees up to my chest, and I crossed my arms in front of my head like a turtle in a shell. I started scooching around in the bed, hopping. I couldn't barely get up. Ted started kicking me with his slippers, but didn't hurt me as much as his fist had. The bedroom door opened, and his mother, Mrs. Amos, came in. It seemed like she was having a hard time figuring out what was going on because Ted's right leg got tired of kicking me and switched over his left one, and she started watching. Finally, Mrs. Amos kind of said, "Toddy." Toddy looked up, fell on his knees, and put his hands on his throat. He started huffing and puffing with his eyes, bucking his head back and his chest going forward, up and down so hard it looked like he was some kind of big animal that was inside of him trying to bust out. This was my chance to get under the bed and pull the covers down so he couldn't see me. Mrs. Amos ran over to her son and fell on her knees. She put her arms on her shoulders. "Toddy, Toddy, boys, you all right?" She looked over to where I was peeking under the bed. "You little cur, what have you done to Toddy?" You know, the best part about this book, and I just read your little piece, was what happens to Bud. As the real adventure here is he's finding that man that's on the flyer that he's certain is dad. He's kind of doing an investigation. He's trying to figure it out. And all the adventures he has in trying to find it out. And you can get the answer too. This book, and it's not really a long book and it's not a big book, but it's a really cool book. And you can get it in any public library in East Chicago. And really, you could probably get it read in one night to find out what exactly happened. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens inside the book. So I really recommend reading this book. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's called Bud Not Buddy. And it's available at any East Chicago City Library.